know your contributions so far already this morning. Difficult issue, a difficult day for us all. But we have to move on with the business at hand. And the next item of business we were going to consider is item 4, and that's the General Fund Financial Outlook. Does anyone have questions for Alistair? No? Councillor Ian McMillan?
Thanks very much. I don't think we need to go over it too much, the report, because it's probably just echoing what we already know in terms of it's a pretty grim situation, not only for Renfrewshire Council, but for councils throughout Scotland. And I noticed that towards the end, there's you can stop in some of the capital programme, which I understand that. I did ask for a list of what programmes that will be affected by that. I was told verbally one, but I haven't got the list of other ones. Now, I dare say if I looked about, I could find it myself, but I was looking to get the officers to get that for us. So I think it would be useful for members to know what impact this is having in the short term in terms of what capital programmes will be kind of put in the back burner, so to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Alistair?
Thanks, Provost. Thanks for the question, Councillor McMillan. So within that programme that was agreed back in 2017, there were a number of items within that, and the elements that we're talking, suggesting and looking for agreement for the council to pause are those that are related to predominantly to the Paisley Town Centre public realm works. The main elements that we're looking to pause are those where we were planning to make some improvements within County Square. And there were also line items within there to allow some enabling and feasibility works on looking at addressing some of the issues with some other gap sites within the Paisley Town Centre, but those gap sites weren't particularly identified in that programme. That programme of works hasn't progressed, so we're suggesting that those elements are paused until the financial position hopefully recovers to an extent that they can potentially be reintroduced as Council's financial position allows, but the main element is the improvement works that had been planned for County Square.
Ian?
Just on another point, the report mentions the visitor levy, which is something I've supported for quite a while. And I know, speaking to my colleagues in COSLA, particularly through in Edinburgh, which is the tourist capital of the world, it seems, at this time of year, certainly the benefits from that would be substantial. It's disappointing it takes such a long time for these things to come through, and consultations, and just seems to take forever. And certainly here in Renfrewshire, where we might not get as many tourists as Edinburgh, but we've got that big airport along the roads, and that's certainly something I would like to see exploring. I know some people might say, well, if you put an extra tax on people arriving in Scotland, it might put people off. But I think generally speaking, people who travel abroad know that, you know, they might have another $5 or £5 or €5 added onto their bill to help support local services. I know when I've been abroad, you go there and that happens, you go, it's a pain, but I understand it. So I think that's an untapped resource, if you like, for Scotland, because as we all know, particularly this time of year, it's very much reliant on the tourist industry in certain parts of Scotland. So I would certainly fully support the visitor levy. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor AnnDowling.
Thank you, Provost. I'd like to thank the officers, particularly Alistair, for this extremely thorough report. It does make very sombre reading. It's very sobering. I feel that we've gone from one highly challenging report into another one. There's certainly no light relief in the contents of the financial outlook. It's really worrying that underpinning a lot of the issues that we're facing as a council, that inflation has stuck high at 8.7%, and we know that's bad news for people with rents and mortgages and any other debt. Food prices are particularly worrying at the moment, and they're rising here faster than others in the G7, 20% faster than France, 30% faster than Germany. And that translates into a difference of £1,000 a year on average that we're paying more just for food. So we know that the cost of living crisis is hitting hard. It's hitting hard, excuse me, particularly on our constituents that have got a lower level of disposable income. They're paying a higher proportion of their income now just to kind of keep their head above water. And it's clear from this report that we have our options for giving assistance are reducing. So that is very depressing to see that. I think going forward, just to make a general point, as this council strives to reduce spending, and it's been mentioned in the later audit update that we've got to save a minimum of £12 million per year. That's a minimum of 12 million for the next 3 years. That we do need openness, transparency and competence, and to work together as well as we possibly can to achieve these savings. While I don't want to overly dwell on Dargavel, I think the incompetence that was personified by Dargavel is just one example of why Renfrewshire taxpayers will be left paying more and getting less in return. So we can't afford any more failure, and I look forward to working with the officers and elected members to try and deliver financial sustainability for this council and make it as painless as we possibly can for the people of Renfrewshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor AnnDowling. Councillor Eddie Devine.
Just to ask Alistair if he could say for the people listening, how much money the council have to save over the next 2 or 3 years in total. Because not everybody's got access to the paperwork that we're sitting with.
Alistair.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Councillor Devine. As is outlined in the report, my recommendation is that the council should be aiming to save, as Councillor AnnDowling has just said, around about £12 million per year over each of the next 3 years.
Okay, Eddie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the report.
Yeah, I know.
No, I know. Yeah. Okay, no more questions? No? Can we agree the report, please? Thank you. Item 5 is the unaudited annual accounts 2022 to 2023. Can we agree the report, please? Item 6, the Treasury Management Annual Report 2022 to 23. Can we agree that report, please? Item 7, Governance Arrangements. I'd like to bring Mark Conahan in, please.
Thank you, members. The report covers 3 separate matters. One is the proposed changes to financial regulations, which are as detailed in the report. There's then changes to the contract standing orders, which again are as set out in the report. And the third matter is simply for members' attention that the scheme of delegations has been amended to take into account the recent restructure of the council regards to the combination of 2 services into 1 directorate. It also picks up a number of changes within services in terms of officer changes, which perhaps arisen either through retirement vacancy or through the Right for Renfrewshire process. There are no changes to the delegations themselves. Any such delegation changes have to be signed off by members, and that would require a separate report. So the changes are effectively changing the naming of the officers who can exercise the delegation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. Do we have any questions for Mark? No? Thank you. Item 8 is the statutory review of polling places and polling districts, and I think Mark's also got something to say about this.
Yes, thank you, Provost. Just want to bring members' attention to one matter which is set out in the report. So the report itself is just advising members that we're kicking off this review. We're not looking for proposals from members today. If you do have any suggestions, please feel free to contact myself or Dave, and we will certainly look at them. But the matter I want to flag is around the UK parliamentary boundary reviews. My understanding is that that matter will be considered and decided at Westminster over the next month. If Westminster approves the changes which were recommended by the Boundary Commission, that does involve as well as the boundary changes themselves, it does involve certain lines within Renfrewshire changing in such a way that we would actually have to create new polling districts. Doesn't necessarily change where people would be allocated to vote, but it does mean that certain parts of existing polling districts might change UK Parliament seat, which would mean that there would need to be a new district created. So what I'm flagging to members is that we will have to pick that up as part of this process if that happens, hopefully at the stage 2 report, which is mentioned that we would hope to bring back in September, but it might just end up pushing our timeline back, and rather than signing all this off in December, it might need to be the following council meeting in March. So I just wanted to make members aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Can we agree? Oh, sorry, Councillor James MacLaren.
Thank you, Provost. So it's just on page 359, District NN17 talks about new polling districts, initially at Bishopton Community Centre and then at Dargavel Primary School. I'm just wondering why initially, when Dargavel Primary School is now up and running. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor MacLaren. That's a reference back to what the polling plan was agreed 5 years ago. So at the point of the polling plan being agreed, at that stage, Dargavel Primary had not been opened, and therefore Council was asked to agree at that stage that once Dargavel Primary School was available, it would be used as a polling district. So it was used at the last election, and I think quite successfully. We certainly didn't have any negative feedbacks in relation to the use of the school. So at the moment, I don't think we would be proposing any change in that particular area, and we would still be allocating the residents of Dargavel to vote at the primary school unless we get any counter proposals as part of the process.
Okay, Councillor AnnDowling.
Provost, this was actually on item 9. Maybe it's just me, I'm getting slightly confused here. We're on item 9 now.
We're still in item 8.
We're still on item 8. This is a question for item 9.
Okay.
But Mark started talking about boundary reviews. I thought, all right, we're on to item 9. So I'll keep my question for item.
Okay, Councillor Emma Rodden. Emma, was yours in item 9 or item 8?
No, mine was in the right item. I know we're trying very hard not to be pedantic in this meeting today, so at the risk of being pedantic, page 360, the bottom line of the table, Thorn Primary School, is marked as being in Council Ward 8. It's actually in Council Ward 9.
It takes in voters from that Council Ward 2. That's why that's marked down. It's like up in Glenbung and Foxburn, it might take in voters from Ward 6 and Ward 7.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. We do have a few polling stations like that cover more than one ward, and not all polling stations actually are located within the wards which they vote. Again, it's issues around where the geographical boundary of the ward, but the natural place for the voters to go is. So we do at Thorn have voters who would be voting in different ballot papers in council elections. Thanks.
Okay, can I have agreement in the report, please? Yeah. Item 9. Councillor Doig.
Thanks, Provost. It's really just a quick commentary, if I can be allowed, please. This is an excellent report, Provost, that Mark has brought before us. I think it highlights some of the real and tangible concerns that have been expressed to me, certainly mainly on behalf of constituents in both the town of Johnston and in Lochwinnock, Kilbarchan and Howard. I think these Boundaries Scotland proposals for the Scottish Parliament boundaries, I think, as they stand, they'll encourage voter confusion and voter apathy. And I think that's really quite an important point at a time when we're trying to get more and more people engaged in the democratic process. In relation to the partition of Johnston under these proposals would find itself like the city of Danzig after the Great War, sort of cast adrift into various pieces. Now, that's bad enough, but what's even worse is that the Boundaries Commission have ignored their own guidelines, in as much as they're supposed to use local government wards as the Lego, the building blocks, to build up these seats. They completely ignored that on this occasion.
and cut into Ward 8, separated it up, taken a section of Johnston, Cochrane Castle, I think Spateston, Ford Bank, Sandy Flats and Moan Ward, and lumped it in with Kilbark and Howard and Lochwinnock, which is now in the new Renfrewshire South seat, which goes as far as the Eaglesham border. I think they're nonsensical proposals. Constituents in the villages especially have also appealed to me in the strongest terms. They feel this is completely unacceptable. It'll have an impact on services because constituents in communities like Clarkston and Eaglesham are zoned to Glasgow hospitals and Glasgow social security offices, whereas the villages here are zoned to Paisley. There's a whole number of reasons why these are very bad ideas. Apart from the partition of Johnston, trying to lump in, I think, Paisley and Renfrew together, there's a kind of disservice to both of these great historic towns. They've got their own distinctive historic identities, and I think putting them together in one seat is entirely nonsensical. That's a nonsense. If they want to take parts of East Renfrewshire and put them anywhere, places like Thornleybank and Clarkson used to be in Glasgow Corporation for decades. I think they need to look at taking these communities and putting them in beside Glasgow. In relation to the Barrhead and Neilson link that's been broken, I think that was a valid link, Provost, because yourself and Councillor Nicholson and a few others on the Labour benches will remember for 20 years when it was the Renfrew District Council that Barrhead and Neilson were part of this authority. So I think there is a definite link there between us and these communities in East Ren, and I think that should continue. I think, I'll finish on this, that the Westminster boundaries that Mark has alluded to, and that's why I got confused, the new boundaries for the Paisley and Renfrewshire North seat proposed to take Cardonald and put it into the Paisley and Renfrewshire North seat. The only way I think we can get these boundaries to work, I've looked at them and I've submitted over 1,400 words of a submission to the Boundaries Scotland. I want to have a public hearing about this. That's a quasi-judicial process. I've taken part previously in 2 of these decades ago, but I really think these changes demand that. But the important thing is to come up with alternatives, and I think the only alternative that works for me, I think, and for the communities in Moan Ward, is that we keep Renfrewshire South as it is, we keep Renfrewshire North West as it is, we take Paisley and put in the Cardonald ward in Glasgow City Council, and therefore that would make the numbers work. So I'll leave it at that, Provost. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. I just got a from Mark for not letting him in before you.
Thanks, Provost. I would never give the Provost a row. Just want to be clear about that. There's something I want to flag to members, and it does pick up on something that Councillor Doig was saying there in terms of a public hearing. The response which is attached to the report was a response which has been submitted on behalf of the returning officer. One of the reasons why Council is invited today to accept and approve that response is that if the Council adopts it and the Council has objected to the proposals, then we should automatically receive a public hearing as a result of that process. I do want to flag to members, however, that there is a potential error in the submission that I've prepared and submitted. Obviously, we were operating under time pressures, and we supplied a copy of our proposed response to the returning officer's office in East Renfrewshire Council, because we thought, given the comments we were making in there, we should really highlight what the submission is. And they've contacted us in relation to one comment. There's a comment in the submission indicating that we would not, the returning officer here would not accept the suggestion that Renfrewshire South would be administered by East Renfrewshire Council on the basis that, as far as we could see, the majority of the residents within Renfrewshire South would actually be from Renfrewshire. East Ren have come back saying they think, based on the numbers, actually the majority of the residents in the new Renfrewshire South seat would be from East Renfrewshire. And looking at the numbers, I think they may well be correct in that. So I strongly suspect that what the Boundary Commission are currently suggesting is that the new Renfrewshire South seat, the newly extended Renfrewshire South seat, despite the vast majority of the geography of that seat lying in this council area, the seat would be administered from East Wren. Now, the point I would make in relation to that, and it's kind of alluded to in the report, that would mean that the votes cast in somewhere like Lochwinnoch would be going in a ballot box, which would go in the back of a van, driven down the M8 motorway through 5 different constituencies to arrive at a town centre in East Renfrewshire, which just points out how illogical, in my view, these suggestions and these proposals are. However, if council was minded to approve the report today, I would intend to pick up that additional comment, which is that the geography of this area is such that the idea of having voters in Lochwinnoch having their votes counted in a count centre in East Renfrewshire just makes no logical sense if members were so minded to approve. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Andy Steele.
Thank you, Provost. I thought it was bad enough until Mark came in. I was lost before. I'm completely lost now. I really want to commend the returning officer for this report, with which I strongly agree. I just want to highlight two comments that were in it. Significantly worse than the existing arrangements, and the logic is difficult to understand. I could not agree more. Councillor Doig has left me a great deal to say about Ward 8, thanks Andy, but putting a salient along the Beath Road is the most stupid suggestion I have ever heard in all my time being interested in politics. Johnston's already split down the middle for local government. It doesn't need it split anymore. It's just nonsense. Bluntly, if this is the sane one, I'd hate to see the mad ones they were coming up with when they were having a laugh. I very strongly support the report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Robert Innes.
Well, I was just to echo a bit of what Councillor Doig and Councillor Steele said there. It seems nonsensical to me to split the community of Johnston up like they're suggesting. It also seems ridiculous to split the community of Renfrew up like it's suggesting as well. The only part of the boundaries I do support is that the community of Houston will be back together. At the moment, it is split in two. So I welcome seeing that Houston will be again together. And I also welcome that Kilmaclone will no longer be in that seat either. That's all. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Innes. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Provost. I would agree with everything that's been said so far, so I would just add to the outbreaker consensus. The chance to comment on incoherent boundary proposals in Renfrewshire seems to come about earlier every year. We would agree and welcome the report the officers have made. I think it's comprehensive in how it's identified the issues with Boundary Scotland's proposals. Councillor Doig and Steele have identified the issues with Johnson, and there already appears to be public anger and a petition about that. But there are other issues. Paisley North West being taken out of the Paisley seat, and the completely bizarre 22 voters in Paisley South West that are going into Renfrewshire South. That's just weird. So we've got considerable issues with these plans, and would certainly, given what Mark has outlined, we would certainly support that, and we'd certainly support public inquiries into this. The proposals overall risk disruption and overcomplicating electoral and service delivery accountability. It simply does not make for good governance, and this will not command public support and have public confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Jill Graham.
Yes, thank you very much. I was actually just going to comment on the fact we have been out knocking doors in the villages, and particularly Ward 9. I agree with what everybody said. I can't speak as eloquently as Kevin did there, but just at a ward level, it does make no sense at all. When you see it, you knock the doors and people say, we're going to put all the villages, Howard, Kilbark and Lochwinnoch, Kilbark and with Eaglesham, Newtonmere, they just stare at you. Why? And I think people know their communities, they know this is absolute nonsense. And it does actually, what's come across when talking to people on doorsteps is, we're just making up the numbers. The village has been stuck on to make up the numbers for the constituency. All the power will be in East Renfrewshire. There's no transport routes, there's no cultural connections between the areas, and people will be quite angry about it. They want to stay where they are. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Kenny MacLaren.
Thank you, Provost. It's just to welcome the report. I've already submitted my response on the bizarre decision to take Ward 4, Paisley North West, out of Paisley constituency and lump it into West Renfrewshire. Yet again, the Boundary Commission, whether it's Scottish Parliament or whether it's Westminster boundaries, they seem to just picking Renfrewshire to carve it up whenever they like to make other areas more suitable. I hope that the Boundary Commission pay some attention to their own rules, which they've just roughshod over, and reinstate Ward 4 back into Paisley, and as well as all the other areas, as my colleagues have mentioned. This is just a ridiculous plan by a Boundary Commission, who I guess wouldn't even be able to find Paisley on a map. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ian McMillan.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the comments. It's not often that a Boundary Commission proposal, causes any excitement or any fuss amongst people. Most people couldn't care less, let's be honest. But certainly in Johnston, people were extremely annoyed and animated about it. And like Councillor Graham, I was involved in petitions and things like that, in street stalls. And it was quite surprising how many people commented on it. And I know social media is a big thing now, and speaking to people about these things, and social media was kind of overran by comments about this splitting. I know other people have got other issues, but my prime concern in this is Johnson. And of course, Johnson is a proud town with a huge long industrial past and all the rest of it. It's always been as the one in terms of electoral. So this just makes absolutely no sense. So I'm delighted that the officers have put forward that point of view. Thank you.
Well, there's nothing that quite unites the council as much as a boundary change. Okay, well, thank you for all your comments, and thank you, Mark. That brings us on to the start of the motions. It's item 10 and it's motion 1. Now, at this point, I would ask if anyone has any strong opinions about taking a lunch break. I would suggest that we just keep on going through the motions, and if we'll see how things go, how much you're talking, and we might have just a very small comfort break in between that. With a smile. So item 10 is motion 1, and that's Councillors James MacLaren and Neil Graham. Councillor MacLaren.
Thank you, Provost. So my motion is about the A8 Langbank Roundabout, a very busy junction at the end of the M8 and very important for Langbank. My motion reads that Council is very concerned at the increasing number of accidents at the A8 Langbank Roundabout. There's been more than half a dozen in the last year. A Scottish Transport Trunk Road review is ongoing for this location, which is due to deliver its initial findings, I would say, by the end of October. And I'm hoping that the Council will agree to write to Transport Scotland highlighting concerns and requesting that this review is accelerated and that it is now considered very urgent indeed. So one of there's been quite a number of accidents, as I said, at the roundabout. It seems to be that many vehicles don't actually slow down for the roundabout, including one Audi TT that hit the roundabout at speed and somersaulted off the A8 across the main road, landing in the woods next to the restaurant there. Narrowly missing a number of pedestrians as well. Residents avoid that roundabout. Some residents avoid that roundabout altogether. They rather take the back roads if they want to get out of the village, rather than risk going onto the roundabout. You kind of take your life in your hands when you do come out of Langbank there. As I say, some vehicles don't lift off when they come to it because you can drive straight through at speed. The chairman of the community council has told me that he's had to stop on the roundabout to let a car whiz past him that didn't slow down. And it's certainly quite nerve-wracking as a councillor coming out of that area. So I'm hoping that you'll support this motion. I don't have an awful lot more to say, but residents would be very happy if you would support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacLaren. Do we have any amendments? No? Okay, the Councillor Graham.
Just second it, thanks.
Okay, so the motion is agreed. Agreed. Item 11, motion 2, that's councillors Devine and Hoods. Councillor Devine.
I'm not going to say too much about this because everything I would like to say is actually included in the motion. And just for the sake of briefness, I won't be accepting any amendments from the Tories. So that will save you asking. Thanks, Provost.
Ask. Okay, do we have any amendments at all? Yes, we have an amendment. Okay, do we have that amendment? Okay, please circulate it. Thank you. It was a wee second. That's it been sent, and I'll give you a wee minute just to have a look at it. You see, Councillor Devine, I told you you'd be glad that I made that decision the last time. You were able to put it back on again. Okay, you all had a wee look at it? Yeah? Councillor Hoods? You want to
Formally second it.
Okay. Don't think we have any more amendments. Doesn't seem to be. This is giving me bother. Okay, Councillor Graham, do you want to speak to your amendment?
I was going to say if, because Councillor Devine never spoke, if you're wanting to just go straight to the vote.
That's up to you, but I have to give you your place and you're entitled to speak to your amendment.
We're happy just to go to the vote. I'm happy to go to the vote. If nobody else is coming in, that will save me going through a monologue.
Just to confirm, the amendment was by Councillor Neil Graham and seconded by Councillor Leishman. Okay, we'll just go to the vote.
Thank you, members. It's a roll call vote. We have a motion by Councillor Devine, seconded by Councillor Hood, and an amendment by Councillor Neil Graham, seconded by Councillor Leishman. Would members confirm whether they are voting for Councillor Devine's motion or Councillor Neil Graham's amendment? Councillor Adam.
Motion.
Councillor Airlie Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor AnnDowling.
Motion.
Councillor Burns.
Motion.
Councillor Jacqueline Cameron.
Motion.
Provost Cameron.
Motion.
Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Clark.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Motion.
Councillor Devine. Councillor Andy Doig. Councillor Roger Doig.
Motion.
Councillor Gilmer.
Motion.
Councillor Grady.
Motion.
Councillor Gillian Graham.
Motion.
Councillor Neil Graham.
Amendment.
Councillor Gray. Councillor Hood.
Motion.
Councillor Hughes.
Motion.
Councillor Innes.
Motion.
Councillor Leishman.
Amendment.
Councillor McFarlane.
Motion.
Councillor Kenny McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Max McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor James McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor MacDonald.
Motion.
Councillor McEwen.
Motion.
Councillor McGonigal.
Amendment.
Councillor Maguire. Councillor McGurk. Councillor McMillan.
Motion.
Councillor McNaughton.
Motion.
Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Mullen. Councillor Mylett.
Motion.
Councillor Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor Patterson.
Motion.
Councillor Roden.
Motion.
Councillor Shaw.
Motion.
Councillor Steele.
Motion.
Councillor Hannigan has voted for the motion. I have 36 for the motion, 5 for the amendment, and the motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Motion has been accepted.
Yeah, I've read the amendment, and anybody that thinks that anybody who's in serious contract has got an option is deluding themselves. They don't. You take what you get, and if you don't take it, you're not doing what.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, we need to be fair. Well, that was your choice not to. Who's chairing this meeting? Excuse me, excuse me. No, I don't want. I'm moving on. Motion 3, Councillors McMillan and AnnDowling. Councillor McMillan.
Thanks very much, Provost. My reason for putting this up today was just to make sure that it didn't bypass the council, and we knew about it. Sometimes these reports come out and not many people pay attention to them, or they don't get a lot of coverage, or there's other news about, and it gets kind of dropped to the bottom of the media's agenda. But I think this report is really a wake-up call for us all. Alistair mentioned earlier on about the cuts that we're going to have to look at over the next 3 years. And I think this publication from the Accounts Commission, shows us in stark reality what's happening there in the community. Listen, there's loads of information on it, and I'm not going to go through it. Hopefully people have had the chance to have a look at it. But there's no doubt that Scotland's councils have suffered because of the pandemic. There's no doubt about that. When I came back in last May, I probably didn't realise how much an impact it did have on councils, and you see that every cycle in terms of the reports we get. But the impact in councils has been huge, and there's signs that there's backlogs and various issues, and performances are getting worse, and we see that in reports. There's concerns over adult social care, and I don't think that's anything new, but it seems to be getting worse. We'll get rising rates of rent arrears. Homelessness is going up as well. We've got a drop in recycling rates. Street cleanliness is a big issue for us as well as other councils. The attainment gap seems to have stalled. Some of us took the opportunity during the break. Pure coincidence, right enough, when we broke up, but there was some parents of ASN kids outside, and then there was a few of us managed to get out there and have a word with them. We know the situation outside. Yes, I'm not entirely sure if all members knew they were actually having a wee kind of protest rally outside, but they did. So we took the opportunity. As I say, it was just pure coincidence when we broke up. So thanks, you've done well there, Provost. So we went out there and had a quick word with them. They're obviously having real issues at the moment. And a big issue for me is poverty in terms of working parents. 2/3 of kids in poverty come from 11 families where people are actually working. And to me, that's an absolute disgrace that people are going out to work, working hard, but they're not even keeping their head above water. They're really, really struggling. So I just really want this report to be noted, and I would hope, and it's not in my motion, and I regret maybe not putting this a wee bit further, but I would certainly hope that we acknowledge the report, and in further reports that come in the coming months, that's alluded to where we are at the moment. And I suppose it's be dead easy to shout and bawl about more money. That would be the easy thing to do, and there's no doubt that that's an issue. But there is radical change, as the report hints at. There is radical change needed. Now, this is my own personal view. I'm not even entirely sure if it's Labour Party policy. I stand corrected if it is or isn't. But I know. Thanks, Eddie. But I certainly think there's far too many councils in Scotland for a small nation. I think there's maybe about time we'd look at the number of councils. Speaking to Alan Russell the other day, and when we spoke about it, you think Renfrewshire Council has been in existence a lot longer than Strathclyde Regional Council ever was. So maybe there is time. And that's not without its pitfalls. I know that, and it can be quite fraught as well. But that's not the only solution. That's just me shoving something in the ring. But I think we really need to look at real change, because my last line probably is a key thing in this motion. Quality services are still able to be delivered. I get a wee bit worried when I see officers putting reports and things saying some services may have to stop. Some services might have to alter altogether, but we didn't come into this council. We didn't stand for election for services to be obliterated and to fall apart, and people to be wondering about what we're going to do, how am I going to get through this. So to me, and the final line is, services are still quality services, not just services, quality services are still to be delivered by local councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. I just want to make it clear that unless I received an email or anything late last night, and I've not checked my email since yesterday morning, I had no notification from anyone about a sort of is it a protest or something outside? I didn't know about it, so I just want that to be known. And I did contact, the last time you raised the issue of the ASN, I did contact one of the groups who were active, and had also said that councillors were notified, because I wasn't notified, and that was made clear in their response to me. So there may be other councillors that also haven't been notified, and I just want to make that clear to everyone. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Do we have any amendments before I move on? No? Councillor AnnDowling, do you want a second? You want to wait?
Thank you. I'll second, and I think given the response from Councillor McMillan was really comprehensive, so I'll come back in if needed.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Graham Clark.
Thank you, Provost. I did find very valuable to attend a session with the Accounts Commission and to look at the way that they're looking at councils just now. I'm encouraged when people struggling in this cost of living crisis are helped into work by council employability programmes, by council support for business startups, and council investment in wider economic development. However, for all that, in Renfrewshire, we continue to have a preponderance of low-paid jobs that bake people into poverty. The Local Government in Scotland Overview 2023 by the Accounts Commission that this motion calls on us to support today commends that we use greater cross-council and cross-sector collaboration, both to create better working conditions for our own council staff and to create better jobs for the region. So I want to commend this motion, call for us to shape a more efficient and radical way of working here in Renfrewshire Council as we face unprecedented challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor David McGonigal.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. I wanted to follow on from the point that Councillor McMillan made and to pick up on the ASN protest that's outside. I think it'd be great if we could go out at lunchtime, if you could allow us to have a lunch break to do that, just to meet them. They are out there. I don't think there was an invitation. I think it was on Facebook that it came out. But again, you're welcome to come out. In fact, I'll happily take you out at lunchtime.
I mean, not everyone looks at Facebook. Sure, I'm just pointing out that I don't want anybody to think that some councillors just didn't bother the backside, because not everyone was contacted. And I don't know why they're contacting some and not others.
Don't know.
I'll leave you
You're welcome to go out. They're there till 2 o'clock. I did want to.
Well, if anyone wants to go out, they can.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to pick up on 2 points. I met with Tracy McGilvery and Emma Henry yesterday to talk about the SN provision and support. And
I know that one of the councillors did digress a bit and mention the ESN protest that was outside. That's not what this motion is about.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So, Councillor, I think that's everyone. No amendments, so can we agree the motion? Yeah? Yes?
Sorry, the Department of IT, my council laptop realises that I don't really like it. And the Blackhill transmitter's gone down and I've now been kicked away. So I'm still here in person, but I can't communicate to you via the Pantechnicon. So. Okay,
you can just yell. I'll keep that in mind, Councillor. Okay, Councillor, I've forgotten where I am. I've actually forgotten where I am. Motion 4 by Councillors Hughes and Shaw. Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Provost. I'll be brief. Hopefully something a wee bit joyful on the agenda after what we've gone through this morning. I just put this motion up to congratulate Jazzle Dazzle Studios on being world champions in 3 different disciplines and winning silver at the All-Star World Championships in Orlando. Anyone who has interacted with any of the girls will know that they are so dedicated, extremely talented. When you're talking about being of the quality that you win a world championship, it is years of your life you've dedicated to it. Training 5 and 6 days a week. It's also a massive investment of their parents and their children's life. Anyone who is a sport or dance or arts parent will know that you spend a lot of time sitting outside places waiting for your wins to come out when they're building their skills and gaining these incredible achievements and experiences. Anyone who has come into contact with Jackie Bryceland or Michelle Holmes will know that they're forces of nature, and their absolute will to help their teams develop and to provide them opportunities is evident in everything they do. They also have a really positive culture. I think often in sports and arts, there can be cultures and competition that can be quite negative, and Jazzle Dazzle is a really welcoming dance school that supports and celebrates other achievements in the lives of their pupils, their dancers. Dance in all its forms is a hard discipline. They are artists and they are athletes. I think it can be kind of set aside a wee bit in terms of what you have to give to it physically. Believe it or not, she says sitting here with a spinal injury, not being able to move much. I did dance when I was young and it is hard. So, you know, just more power to them, and we're so delighted in Renfrew. They're over the moon to have done it, and I just hope that council is with me and wishing them many, many more successes. And there's a wee request there around some civic hospitality, which I think they may have contacted you about, Provost, and I'll stop there, but I just was so delighted for them.
Yeah. Councillor Shaw?
Not really got a lot to add to what Councillor Hughes has said. It's a wonderful achievement for the Renfrew dance school. As a dance dad myself, I know the work that these young people put in. Gavin Young's MP's 2 daughters, interestingly, were part of this team of children that went over to Florida, and I know they're running about after the girls that he does, and you know, it's constantly, oh, I've got dance lessons, and I know how much he loves the dancing. So, you know, the work that goes into this by, you know, the leaders, by the young people involved, and by the parents is massive, and it's a fantastic result.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I'd love to know what a dance dad entails.
Well, it's tough work, I tell you.
Apart from just running them around.
I was a piping dad for a while, but now I'm a dance dad. You know, so.
I agree with everything that you're saying. I mean, a huge congratulations to them. I've never really been a dancer except for around some nice clubs in Paisley when I was a bit younger. But yeah, I know that it is hard work. It is a tough discipline. So well done to them all. And I'm already speaking to them about giving them some sort of civic hospitality and celebration, which the Renfrew councillors, of course, will be invited to. Okay, so I agree the motion? Yeah. Motion 5, councillors Andy Doig and Hoods. Councillor Doig.
Okay, thank you, Provost. This motion is kind of very much self-explanatory, Provost. What Councillor Hood and I, we're only asking NatWest and RBS to take the same view today as they did during the pandemic. During the pandemic, they seemed to understand, they seemed to get it, that it was important for families to have access, free access to cash. And it's important for families, individuals and businesses. That's still the same today. Now, in 2014, when RBS closed their branch in Lochwinnoch, what they said to the folk of Lochwinnoch at the time was, well, we'll keep services available. We'll give you a mobile bank twice a week, which is we were very grateful for. And RBS will also fill the gap. Now, today, RBS Regional Management are now talking about a mobile bank branch for Johnston, but what they're not saying, what they didn't say to the 2 local parliamentarians that met them, they're taking one day from Lochwinnoch to give it to Johnston. And that's just absolutely disgraceful. I will not have the communities in my ward played off against each other at the whim of corporate multinational companies. Last year, NatWest RBS made a profit of 1.5 billion, which was up from 3.8 billion in 2021. And this is the company, it can't afford to put in a second mobile van for customers in Johnston without cutting their van to Lochwinnoch. It's just an absolute disgrace. Now, NatWest and RBS also say, well, the post office network can take the slack. Well, Lochwinnoch and Howwood share a post office van, and again, the villages are grateful for that. Kilbarchan has got one working post office. Johnston has got one main working post office. If you go back, Provost, less than 15 years, it was the case that Lochwinnoch and Howwood had their own post office. Kilbarchan had 2 post offices, and I think Johnston had about 3. The other local members will correct me on that, but I mean, the post office network itself is retracted, so that can't be the saviour in terms of providing services to communities. Now, RBS Regional Management have also said they'll put a banking hub in Station 7 for 2 days a week. But this is a guarantee that only lasts for 12 months. There's no certainty about that. What we're asking them to do is, by all means, sell the building. They sold the building in Lochwinnoch, but they kept the ATMs functional for the local community. We're only asking them to do in Johnston what they've did in Lochwinnoch. And why they seem to have great difficulty with this, I do not know. Most of the folk in this chamber have been in public life for quite a long time. In 2008, the UK government at the time and the Labour government, and quite rightly so, bailed out the banks. I think it's about time they returned the favour and had some sense of public obligation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Doig. Your seconder, Councillor Hood.
Formally, the right to come back in.
Okay, Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Provost. I just say I agree wholeheartedly with this motion and encourage the council to support it. Councillor Doig, signed by myself at the planning board, refused permission for him to close the ATMs in Johnston. And the fact is that over the last few years, we've seen these large multinational companies shrinking the free 24-hour, 7 days a week service that the public get. And while I know we're moving towards a cashless economy, there are people still within Renfrewshire, this county, who rely on cash transactions. And the banks do not seem to be taking any cognizance of these people's needs. If you're a small business person who perhaps runs a taxi service or a small shop, you cannot always make the post office or a bank 9 to 5. You've got to bank out of hours. And these free cash points allow them to do that. So what we're basically seeing here, Provost, is large multinationals not listening to local people. Councillor Doig highlighted the fact that spoke to one MSP and one MP. I suggest that if they came and spoken to the 4 local councillors, they might have got a different answer. Because over the last 10 years, we have seen the bank slowly shrink the services available to us. Our charges are increasing and their services diminishing. So I won't labour the point too much, Provost, but I'd ask the council to support this motion. If we don't draw a line in the sand now, before we know where we are, we'll be going to Glasgow to go to a branch. And we don't want that. We want to keep it as local as we can. We've now lost the villages. What my suggestion is that we try and keep the main town centre hubs, to keep make available the people who really need it. We have still got a large demographic within this county who needs and uses cash banking. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jim Patterson.
Thanks very much, Provost. I agree with the motion, although I recognise it's a very local issue. I think it makes a broader point. But what I wanted to kind of touch on is quite often, as we hear about bank closures, we're often directed towards the post office as an alternative, which for some people works. But I'll tell you who doesn't work for postmasters and the people that run the post office, because the actual, I mean, if you speak to most of the ones I have spoken to, when they take on a banking service in a community, it often actually costs them money to run the service because of the time involved, because they've not got access to the same systems, the same staff as bank branches normally do. So you're asking post office staff to provide a banking service, which can be quite time consuming. So if you break that down into an hourly rate, you'd probably find that post offices lose money if businesses come in with large sums of coins and notes. So it's probably not fair of the banks. Well, if a phrase we use a lot, but if they're going to point more and more to the post office, what they need to do is get together and renegotiate the banking contract with post office fees to make sure they're properly remunerated for that service. Otherwise, the post offices won't be far behind them in closing.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I don't think we have any amendments to the motion. No? No one else to speak? No? Okay. We'll just agree the motion then?
Great.
Councillor Hood?
I just wanted to come in at the end.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, the only thing I was going to say is that
finished.
And we finished.
Move on. Move on. Okay. The next motion is motion 15. No, 6. Item 15. I'm getting myself confused. That's Councillors Doig and Hood.
Okay, thanks, Provost. This motion is quite extensive, but it's an issue that only this year has been flagged up again on the Scottish Parliament's kind of agenda. Now, I have to say that since devolution in 1999, there's been some excellent MSPs, and all parties have brought things to the table about the land issue. And I'd like to quickly mention a few. Former MSP Rob Gibson of the SNP, who was extremely active in the land issue. Andy Whiteman, who started his life as a Green MSP and then ended up as independent. And now there's other new MSPs like the Mercedes Villalaba, the Labour MSP from the North East, who's sort of taken up the cudgels about land reform. So there's always been a cohort of MSPs who've been extremely interested in the land issue. And I think rightly so, because some of the measures that have been passed in the last 10 to 20 years have encouraged community ownership. But to simply encourage community ownership, I don't think is enough in the current political climate, because we're trying to meet the climate challenge and we're trying to grow the economy. So we really need to take a look at the feudal network of the land system in Scotland, and the large estates really need to be broken up. Yes, there is a right to property, but that has to be balanced, I think, against the public and national interest. There's no other European country operates in the way that we do, and it has to change. Why does it have to change? A quick example. This month's Ferret magazine, the Ferret is an investigative magazine. This month's Ferret magazine reveals that Scottish properties owned by 6 Tory donors worth over £53 million, who've together given the Tory party millions of pounds, are registered offshore in secret accounts. I think what's clear is that the current system of ownership is far from being transparent, and it needs to be reformed, and it needs to be reformed in a quite radical direction. Now, that 53 million could be used for reforestation projects, community use, or for sustainable projects that actually create employment and boost local economies to create jobs in every part of Scotland in the public interest. Now, according to figures from 2013, there's about 400 landowners own 50% of all the privately owned rural land in Scotland. 30 owners have got more than 25 hectares each, while the largest private landowner, the Danish billionaire Anders Poulsen, owns just under 90,000 hectares. So I think the new Land Reform Act has to have a public interest test in it. This is a measure that an awful lot of other European and countries outside Europe have. We need to look at things like a cap on land. Should there be a cap on land? I think there definitely should be. Should we take a more vigorous approach to the right to compulsory purchase? I think we do. Most of all, I'm back to the old chestnut that I keep talking about, is a land value tax. We need to have a land value tax, because that would transform the situation. Councillor McMillan spoke very eloquently about the need. We have to deliver services to the best of our ability, but a land value tax at local government level would absolutely transform our financial position. So we need to look at all of these measures in the round. This is only the start of the discussion. It's not the end, but I think Renfrewshire's voice should be heard in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before you come in, Councillor Hood, I want to let you know that there is an amendment from Councillors Neil, Graham and Leishman. Alec Leishman. Okay. Do you want to come in? Do you want to second it just now, or do you want to wait, Councillor Hood? No, I think, have you sent the amendment, Dave?
No.
Yeah, the amendment's been sent. Do you want to second the motion?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
second the motion.
Okay.
I'll come in for a wee toty bit.
Yeah.
Right, the one thing that always gets to me is the amount of land that is put by so folk can actually go out shooting deer and shooting the grouse. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bits of land that's doing nothing, absolutely nothing.
And we actually have to do something about that, because we're talking about national parks. That's one, national parks, where we've got the actual Scottish Government can take that on. We're talking about, as Councillor Doig had said, maybe regrowing the forests. One thing that the council's always been doing or working towards is doing a community forest, where we've got new builders come in, and instead of planting the wee whip trees in the builder site, where they could actually build or plant a community forest. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Graham, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, I'm happy to read it out. The motion more or less speaks for itself. Council notes a consultation currently being done by the Scottish Government on a new land reform bill. Council notes that these are still in the early stages of development, and more resource must be concentrated on improving the planning system, which must be made to support communities in producing effective local place plans, which would increase community-led development and inform local development plans which landowners to work with to deliver for the local area. Regional land use partnerships have been cited by the Scottish Land Commission as being an important mechanism which to coordinate regional land use and priorities at large scale. Community right to buy legislation already gives established and capable community bodies the opportunity to acquire land and assets to use in the interests of the community. The main issue with this legislation is the complex and bureaucratic requirements on communities wishing to register. These systems must be assessed and improved to attain the Scottish Government's ambitions for increased community ownership. There is growing evidence that management of land at scale has positive outcomes for the environment and communities, and more than half of respondents from the Scottish Land Commission's own survey considered management at scale to be positive, with the minority considering it as negative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Leishman.
Thank you, Provost. I second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor AnnDowling.
Thanks, Provost. I welcome this motion from Councillors Doig and Hood, and I'd like to thank them for bringing it here today. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Andy Whiteman, a former MSP in the Scottish Parliament, a former Green MSP who was very unfairly driven out of that party, in my view. But his ongoing contribution to advancing the cause of common land ownership in Scotland is pretty unparalleled, and I think it's a huge loss to Scottish political life. So I'm happy to see it and look forward to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have no more speakers, so I'm going to go back to Councillor Doig to sum up before we go to the votes.
Thanks very much, Provost. I think it's been a short but interesting debate. I mean, I welcome the comments made by Councillor Dowling. She's extremely correct in her summation that Andy Whiteman was a land campaigner for about the last 30 years. He's written quite a few books. I think one was The Poor Had No Lawyers, the other one was Who Owns Scotland's Land. He's been one of the strongest and most consistent voices about land reform, so she's entirely correct there. In relation to Councillor Graham's amendment, I accept that there's a body of work here, but it's a replacement. It's a replacement, not an addition, so I won't be accepting it, Provost. I mean, can I just tell you why in a few short sentences here? It talks about the main issue with the right to buy, community right to buy, is the complex and bureaucratic requirements on communities wishing to register. So the Tory amendment itself actually makes the case for the substantive motion. What's in place is well intentioned, but it's not working. That's why we need to go further. And if you look at countries like Finland, there's a 2018 study in Finland showed that Scotland's forestry output could equal Finland's at 23 billion per annum. What we get from the landed owners of the big estates just now, with the Saudi princes and Russian oligarchs running about shooting grouse, is about 32 million per annum. So in fact, there's major benefits for the economy. There's major benefits in terms of fighting climate challenge. We can't do this with one hand tied behind our back. Scotland's land ownership system is backward. We're about 100 years behind some other European countries. We need to get to grips and move on. Right?
Thank you, Councillor Doig. Okay, we'll go to the votes.
Thank you, Provost. It's a roll call vote. We have a motion by Councillor Andy Doig, seconded by Councillor Hood, and an amendment by Councillor Neil Graham, seconded by Councillor Leishman. Would members confirm whether they are voting for Councillor Andy Doig's motion or Councillor Neil Graham's amendment? Councillor Adam.
Motion.
Councillor Ailey Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor AnnDowling.
Motion.
Councillor Burns.
Motion.
Thank you. Councillor Jacqueline Cameron.
Motion.
Provost Cameron.
Motion.
Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Clark.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Motion.
Councillor Devine. Councillor Andy Doig. Councillor Roger Doig.
Motion.
Councillor Gilmer.
Motion.
Councillor Grady. Motion. Councillor Gillian Graham.
Motion.
Councillor Neil Graham. Councillor Gray. Councillor Hood.
Motion.
Councillor Hughes.
Motion.
Councillor Innes.
Motion.
Councillor Leishman.
Amendment.
Councillor McFarlane.
Motion.
Councillor Kenny McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor Mags McLaren.
Motion.
Councillor James McLaren.
Amendment.
Councillor MacDonald.
Motion.
Councillor McEwen.
Motion.
Councillor McGonigal.
Amendment.
Councillor Maguire.
Motion.
Councillor McGirt.
Motion.
Councillor McMillan.
Motion.
Councillor McNaughton.
Motion.
Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Mullen. Councillor Mylett.
Motion.
Councillor Nicholson.
Motion.
Councillor Patterson.
Motion.
Councillor Roden.
Motion.
Councillor Shaw.
Motion.
Councillor Steele.
Motion.
Councillor Hannigan's voted for the motion. I have 36 for the motion, 5 for the amendment. The motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get someone to come and get you, Lisa Marie. Councillor Shaw. He's away. Okay, we're on to motion 7 now, and that's by Councillors Maguire and Grady. Councillor Maguire.
Thanks, Provost. Renfrew S3, they had an extraordinary season. In the pursuit of promotion, they've demonstrated tenacity, consistency and dignity. This is Renfrew's second trophy of the season, following their success in the Strathclyde Cup, meaning they've ended the season with a cup double, which is absolutely incredible. It's been wonderful to see the support of the local community over the season. We've witnessed, large crowds at Western Park, which is always amazing to see. I had the privilege of playing with Renfrew FC through to under-15s level, and I must say that the facilities and the coaches are exceptional. None of what you see at the professional level would be possible without the brilliant volunteers who devote countless hours at providing others the opportunity to participate in the sport we all adore. Now, this year pyramid structure that's been implemented by the SFA has given teams the opportunity to pursue their ambitions and advance to the professional level. But my only criticism is that they continue to make promotion from, the West of Scotland League, the Lowland League and League Two, exceedingly difficult. And we need a system that allows, ambitious teams like Renfrew to ascend to the top. And I hope the SFA will, look into this in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grady.
Thanks, Provost. This is a real success story, not just for this team, but for all the teams involved in Renfrew Football Club. It inspires, it builds confidence, and it injects a real feel-good factor into Renfrew in general. So I congratulate everybody involved. Thank you.
Yeah, well done to them all. Councillor Devine. Sorry, I should say there are no amendments just before I go on. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Provost. Can I just say that I totally agree with it. Congratulations, but should remind people that Bill Brown supported him Councillor Bill Brown has supported him for many years and in fact sponsored jerseys. We should remember that one of our own workers has been there for many, many years, John Gilmer. So he's done a tremendous amount of work. But I want to mention one of the players who's now retiring, and Ian, I'm going to bring Ian in here, David McKenna. Now, David played with my team a few years ago. And David won many Scottish Cups with Johnston High, along with Ian's boy, I think won 3 out of 4 or whatever it was. So David then went on to play with St Mirren, a good team, and he's had a really good career. But unfortunately, he's now retired at the end of the season. As Jamie said, there a double winner with the Strathclyde Demolition Cup and the league Division 2, I think it is. So well done to Renfrew FC.
Yeah, Councillor Patterson.
Many thanks, Provost. Obviously, 2 of my Renfrew colleagues have had to declare an interest and leave, so in lieu of them being here, I'll speak to the motion, but I have to declare an own interest that I'm not a Renfrew FC fan. I'm a Yoker boy in every sense of the word, and my junior team will always be Yoker Athletic, who play at Home Park, who have been left behind in the 2nd division since Renfrew have been promoted. But it's a massive well done to the team and everybody involved. I'd like to point one person out who's had a big impact on the whole of Renfrewshire, but in particular Renfrew Juniors, is Tom Johnson, the former president of the Chamber of Commerce, who's a fantastic guy and dedicates a lot of his time to helping the juniors in terms of where they are now and where they're based. So he deserves a big thank you as well. Thank you. Big
thank you to Tom and all the other volunteers that help. Well done. Well done, Renfrew. Okay, bring Lisa Marie back in. Stop talking about you. So that was item 7. We just finished, Lisa Marie. As you know, the motion was agreed. We're on to motion 8 now. Councillors Maguire and Grady again. And
thanks, Provost. Back again. No, congratulations to the 1st and 3rd Boys Brigade companies on the 135th and 75th anniversaries. Now, this is an outstanding accomplishment that exemplifies the Boys Brigade commitment to the community. They've demonstrated an unwavering commitment to bettering the lives of those who reside in the area. The talents and values learned in the Boys Brigade are invaluable. They last forever. Take me as an example. I would never have envisaged myself being in this position today, you know, representing the town that I love so dearly. And I believe that the Boys Brigade contributed to my development. I was in the Boys Brigade up to about, you know, company section, and, you know, the values really do last a lifetime. They've gave me the moral compass, to go and achieve, you know, success. So I would like to extend a special thanks to the Renfrew North Parish Church, where the Boys Brigade operates in Renfrew. These opportunities would not exist without this exceptional institution, which provides a vast array of opportunities for local individuals and organisations to collaborate. So thank you to them.
Thank you. And for noting, before you go in, Councillor Grady, that they have also been celebrated with a civic reception several weeks ago. Councillor Grady.
Thank you. Just to echo Councillor Maguire's sentiments there, the Boys Brigade is a fantastic organisation, and it has served the boys of Renfrew for 135 years at least. So as a former Boys Brigade boy myself, it really does develop your formative years, and my teenage years in the Boys Brigade were some of the best days of my life. And I'd like to congratulate all the officers, volunteers and boys, past and present, for this wonderful accolade. So thank you very much, Provost.
Thank you. Councillor Lisa Marie Hughes.
Thanks, Provost. I'll be very brief. I wasn't in the Boys Brigade. There's an echo.
Is your mic,
Yeah, I'm muted.
Usually always Andy.
You muted? Okay. Okay, thanks, Provost. As I said, I wasn't in the Boys Brigade, but I was a Brownie similar organisations, and I think one of the things that I attended the celebration service, which I thought was a lovely service, and one of the things that was reflected throughout it, they had members who'd been in the Boys Brigade 70 years ago, who still take part in the organisation and supporting to people to come up through that. And I think in all of these organisations, you tend to find that's the case. And the thing that I found really kind of emotional when they were talking about it was they talked so much about the friendships they built there and that relationship with people through the time that they were there and with their place. And that struck me as being perhaps the most important thing to them. They've talked about their wonderful volunteering work and skills they've developed and that sort of thing, but people just seem to really take a really personal relationship forward and relationships that carried through their lives. And I think that being part of organisations is important for that reason.
Yeah, it was a lovely service, wasn't it? Councillor John Shaw. Were you in the Boys Brigade, John?
No, I was not in the Boys Brigade. It was Renfrew Town Sea Scouts and the North Cubs for a bit for me. Maybe there's a thing going on in Renfrew here where the BB produce the Labour politicians and the Scouts and the Brownies produce the SNP politicians. But I know through friends when I was a boy, friends who were involved, and young people that that are children of my friends now who are involved. Two fine organisations. I wish them both well in their anniversaries.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think you're right about the friendships, like lifelong friendships are formed. And, we can't underestimate the value of these organisations on young people. And sometimes we tend to do that. Councillor Jim Patterson.
Never one to contradict my colleague, Councillor John Shaw. I was a BB boy, although not part of the Renfrew contingent. I went to Section 187 in Blot Hill in Yoker, as I referred to earlier, but I still want to say thanks. And it is right that these organisations can have a massive impact on you. As Pirates, Anchor Boys, Boys Brigade Junior Section. Never made the senior section. I had my head turned by other extracurricular activities come that time. But the discipline instilled in me at the junior section stays with me today, and it's a big well done to reaching such a momentous anniversary.
Yeah, so well done to all concerned. Anyone else? No. I take it there's no amendments. No. The Brownies, yeah, I know, Alison. Councillor Devine. Okay, yeah, Alison and I will cover the Brownies and the Guides at a later date. So thank you for your motion. Motion agreed? Okay. That brings us on to motion 9 by Councillors McGurk and Innes. Councillor McGurk.
Thanks, Provost. I have to say, I'm delighted that we're all bringing positive things to the end of the meeting today, and especially to do with volunteering, because the Boys Brigades is a purposeful organisation, as is the Scouts and the Girl Guides. But what we also have is volunteering. And today I would like to ask you all to congratulate the volunteers, and that's what the motion is about today. Fortunately, we were very lucky to celebrate 40 of them at an event in Glenburn a couple of weeks ago, and I got to speak to every single one of them. And to be honest, they are a great delight. They love what they do. They're passionate about what they do. And so are the people in Glenburn in the areas that they actually serve. And I think it's amazing to be able to say today, congratulations to all of them. Last night, I was lucky to be invited to the National Youth Awards, Youth Work Awards finalists, and 2 of our groups were finalists in that, Celebrating Renfrewshire and the Evolve programme. Now, they didn't win on the evening, but can I tell you, I hope you agree with me, they are winners for us in Renfrewshire. The work they do is tremendous. I've been closely watching some of the impact they've had. They Evolve have transformed some of our youngsters in our schools to be more settled young people and getting on with their lives in a more positive way. And the Celebrating Renfrewshire equally allows young people to have their voices and come forward and feel as if they've been listened to and can participate in what we do. I think this work is amazing, and I think we have to congratulate our staff for managing it. And I would also like to announce that yesterday we were fortunate that the Scottish Government has given us extra money to deliver some of the Summer Connections programme that we so are looking forward to deliver to our young people over the next few weeks. And a few weeks ago, I was a bit annoyed that we didn't think we would get the money, but we are getting the money and we'll be able to deliver a good summer programme. So I hope you would congratulate everyone with me on the good work that they've done. Thank you, Provost.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. I don't think, society and our communities would crumble without volunteers. There's no doubt about it. I know several of us are volunteers ourselves, and looking at Councillor McMillan there, who I know has done a tremendous amount of volunteering in the community. So yeah, I would urge councillors to, if they do have the time, and I know that you don't all have the time, but even an hour or two a week can make such a big difference. So Councillor Cathy McEwen.
If you'll allow me, Provost, I realise that I should have said at the beginning that I'm very glad to declare a connection with Team Up to Clean Up as a volunteer. And I know that there are plenty of other councillors in here that have done that as well, along with me. I just want to say I am so proud of how much it's grown and still growing. And well done to everybody involved with this. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Cathy. Councillor Jacqueline Cameron.
Thanks, Provost. And yeah, just want to welcome this very positive motion. Yeah, obviously we're now officially at the end of a pandemic, which is great news. But I just wanted to reflect on the part that volunteers took during the pandemic. The council's frontline services were invaluable, obviously, but without volunteers, there was a lot of things that wouldn't happen. So grassroots organisations were delivering food parcels, taking medication to people, and we couldn't have got through it without them. So wanted to reflect on that. And Councillor McGirt mentioned the Summer Connections programme even. One of the unintended consequences of the Winter Connections programme was that community groups saw an increase in volunteers. So that was really, really positive. And obviously we're running that programme again. So hopefully that will again be another maybe intended consequence this time, that we have more volunteers. So support the motion. Thank you. Councillor Ian McMillan.
Thanks again, Provost. No, I fully support this motion. And as you mentioned there, I spent the time when I wasn't in the council, most of my time was doing volunteering, and I still do a wee bit. And the satisfaction you get out of doing that is invaluable, and the people you meet, the experiences you have are absolutely terrific. And I still do some because, and I know you do as well, Provost, it gets you away from the humdrum of the council. And when you go and work in a stall or help run a football team, you're not a councillor there, you're just one of the guys or girls, and you just got on with it, and it's great. I must admit, I spent a lot of time when I worked in the job centre trying to encourage particularly young people to take volunteering, especially people who are maybe a distance away from the job market, and the skills that you can develop through volunteering can be invaluable and can make the difference between getting a job and not getting a job, so I think there are a lot of positives for people in volunteering. And I had to laugh there when Eddie Devine mentioned John Gilmer. I was at a cup final a couple of weeks ago, ironically enough, at Renfrewshire Juniors, and it was one of these afternoons where there was like 3 or 4 games all in a row. So there's a whole load of fans leaving rubbish and then going, then a whole load of other fans coming, leaving rubbish. And who was the man picking it up? John Gilmer. So if once you get that volunteering in you, it's very hard to stop. And I don't know if Councillor Steele, I know he'll probably be around in Saturday at some point. It's very hard once you get a reputation for being a volunteer to say no. And I know the Tenants Association in Cosford are having their day of fun in Saturday afternoon at Fordbank School, and I've been harangued into helping out on the day, so sometimes it gets downside as well. But no, well done to everybody that volunteers in Renfrewshire. And let's be honest, the place would collapse if we didn't have volunteers.
Yeah,
thank you.
Agree. Absolutely agree, and I'm sure you'll have a good time at the fun day.
Oh, I am.
Unless they put you in the stocks. Councillor Hood.
Just to add to that, if anyone wants to come along and listen to Johnson Sound, we'll be there.
Advert for Johnson Sounds, there we go. They'll be there at the fun day. Councillor Caroline Davidson.
Hi, thanks, Provost. Just to really welcome this motion coming forward. As a former employee of community learning and development, I was a community worker in Foxbar, Glenburn, and then latterly Southend until becoming an elected member. So I was also a volunteer for adult literacy, so I know the fantastic work they're doing. I visited Southend Learning Centre last week, and Kirsten, who's running it, who took over from me, and she's doing an absolutely fabulous job. So I just wanted to give a mention. The stuff they're doing, and it's all through the summer as well. They're supporting so many families, and it's just a tremendous work. And the volunteers are absolutely amazing. So thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, and well done, Christine. She was the recipient of one of the Provost Awards. So does a lot of really great work. Well done to her. Councillor Michelle Campbell.
Thank you, Provost. For me, my focus is going to be around Team Up to Clean Up, that in terms of my country. There are a couple of volunteers that are not very good at sort of accepting praise. I think that everyone will have examples of that. These are the people that do the volunteering, and they're the ones that hold that glue together. And I'm glad that this council not only recognises that, but has invested and supported. And that is what has led to this growth through Team Up to Clean Up, because it was those existing networks and giving them the infrastructure and support and funding for equipment, for example, that they maybe were having to beg and borrow to get, which has allowed for them to have that confidence to be able to expand and gain more support, and it continues to grow, as Councillor Cathy McEwen had said, as the previous ILE convener. She was very, very supportive of that coming into play into the council. Heather Clissett at the Erskine Community Garden, she had been doing cleanups informally in the community for a long, long time, and she has been very supportive of Team Up to Clean Up. There's also a community volunteer called Stephen Hughes, who never accepts any accolades or support, but always looks for a new pair of shoes or trousers, you know, just because obviously the nature of the work that they're doing, and it's always very well received. And in Shannon, David Barker, who's a member of the Community Council, you know, he gives reports on sort of the work, and he's, although quick to criticise, I'm sure David would be the first to say that, he will absolutely hold us to account. He also recognises where that investment has made such a difference, and having that extra support around them. They're all very grateful, and I'm very grateful to all the work that they're doing as well.
Yeah, that's something that we should consider at all times, is supporting the volunteers if they want to do something. Councillor Robert Innes.
I just wanted to come in and kind of say, I always, sorry, I'm double here. Right. Is that me? All right. Aye. I just wanted to say, it always blows me away when I'm out talking to volunteers and stuff like that they do this selfless stuff in their own time, and sometimes it's very hard jobs as well. It's no just doing it for a bit of fun. They're doing something that's really important for society in their volunteering. But I suppose I'll highlight some of the stuff around my way. You've got fantastic groups out my way, like Brighter Bridge of Weir and Be Happy Houston, who are out every single day making the villages look absolutely fantastic. I'll give a special mention to Jake Fulton in Houston, who is 24/7 out volunteering, making Houston look smashing. So that's it for me. Volunteers are crying.
Yeah, great stuff. Also out your way, Robert, as we met them recently, the people who are trying to get the War Memorial.
Oh, of course, the Limerick War Memorial Society, they're
that's a great group
as well.
Okay, Councillor Jim Patterson.
Thanks, and I concur with all the volunteer groups that have been mentioned so far. I want to highlight the contribution of two sets of volunteers I think are integral to life in Renfrewshire, but also across the whole country. The first being having a citizens advice background is the importance that the volunteers play in providing that service. Obviously there is paid staff at every citizens advice bureau, but without the volunteers input, they simply wouldn't be able to reach the amount of folk they do. And I recognise that, having been in previous employment and managing volunteers at a very busy citizens advice bureau, when you've got 10-15 people at the door looking for advice, if you didn't have those 4 or 5 volunteers in the room with you, you wouldn't simply be able to see everybody. So that's very important. And also, because we're at that time of year where they seem to be their most active, as parent councils, who give up a lot of their own time. And it's not just about the meetings they have and the kind of stuff they do, it's the fundraising they do for the school, but also the practical things about manning the school disco and providing that extra support to very grateful head teachers across Renfrewshire. So just wanted to recognise their input as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Sad Mullen.
Provost, it'd just be amiss if I didn't say this. I mean, obviously, you've heard many comments about volunteers, but particular Councillor Campbell mentioned, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a lot more people in Erskine and in Shannon do a hell of a lot. They don't want any recognition. They do it because they're trying to make the police leader look better. They're trying to encourage other folk to keep an eye on things, and I welcome that. And volunteering's no easy. It's hard because once you're committed, but I think we've got to give applause to everybody that volunteers, especially the ones that don't want any recognition from me. And I think it's fabulous we've got them because we couldn't work without them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mullen. Councillor Kenny MacLaren.
Thank you, Provost. I'd like to reiterate what everyone's already said. Volunteers are the lifeblood of our communities, from running local halls like the Beechwood Community Centre to larger groups such as the Star Project and even Roar. The skills and experience and dedication of volunteers are essential in the delivery of vital services. I'm privileged to be a volunteer director of Shop Mobility Peaceland District, and I'm well aware of the support we receive, not just from our staff, but especially from our volunteers. And although I wouldn't like to single one out over others, I do feel I have to give a special word of thanks to our main volunteer, the well-known Paisley historian Les Fernie, who along with his wife Sandra travelled down to the House of Lords to represent Shop Mobility Paisley District at a parliamentary reception about shop mobilities and the services we provide in the local area. For me, Les embodies the commitment and dedication that all volunteers have who support local groups all across Renfrewshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacLaren. Councillor Will Mylett.
Thanks, Provost. Again, just to echo what everyone's saying, I mean, we've got volunteers right across Renfrewshire. We've got the community councils and Team Up to Clean Up's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you just drive around and all you see across many different communities is somebody with a Team Up to Clean Up vest on, taking some responsibility for their own area, and it makes you want to do more yourself as well, whether it's just clearing the front of your own house or anything. It's really fantastic. And again, I'd like to mention the Friends of Jenny as well, because they've done a phenomenal amount of work. They've worked tirelessly to try and get that area looking a lot better. They've gained extra funding. They've got stuff from Cycle Scotland, and they've done a phenomenal amount of work. It's great to see the work that goes in, and it makes our communities better and gives a sense of community as well. It's the friendships that you make when you're doing these things and get out and helping. And I would suggest to anybody, if you've got any free time, go out, volunteer, you meet new people, you meet fantastic people, and it's a fantastic part of our community. Thank you, Provost.
Yeah, well, I don't think we can finish this chat, I would say, without making a plea to people not to drop their litter. Thank you very much. Keep your area clean, the area where you live, be proud of it. And also making a disclaimer that, you know, if we've left any organisations out, then we apologise. People were just using organisations as an example, so please don't be offended. So I am assuming then that the motion is agreed, which brings us on to our final motion today, and that's motion 10 by Councillors Innes and McGurk. Councillor Innes.
Thanks, Provost. I'll try and be brief here. The Safe Kids event down at St Mum this year, it was the first time back for the pandemic. We had the big show down there. It's been going on for the estimate over 20 years. I actually think I'd done it at school, but I can't remember if I did or not. But it's a unique learning programme. It's been running for a very long time. It's great to see. It was great to see it come back. And I mean, the key to this Safe Kids event and its success to date is the innovative style with which the learning outcomes that the children learn are delivered. Each young person participated in workshops during their visit to St Mum, and they learned about stuff like antisocial behaviour and their role in the community, littering and dog fouling, alcohol and drug awareness, emergency situations, internet safety, railway safety, and water safety. So these are all things I think that it's a perfect age there, primary 6, just before you're hitting high school, that you're doing this stuff and learning about this stuff. The workshops themselves, they're designed to be fun, interactive, and give children the vital messages across these subjects, which can be difficult to talk about, and give them the tools to because as you know, kids, we can tell them as much as you want. You don't drink, don't smoke, don't do this, don't do that. They're still going to do it when they're teenagers. It happens, you know. Kids drink Buckfast, they smoke fags. It happens. So we're better equipping them with the tools to help their peers in these situations. I think it's a great, as I say, I think it's a great initiative, and long may it continue going on. And I'll just finish by saying that I want to thank the council officers and their key community safety partners who deliver the event: Police Scotland, Scottish Fire Rescue Service, Renfrewshire Adolescent Drugs and Alcohol Resource, our community safety youth officers, the wardens and the civil contingencies team. Cheers.
Thank you, Robert. Councillor McGurk. Thank you. Councillor Jacqueline Cameron.
Thanks, Provost. Yeah, just to say, I think Safe Kids is a great programme. I was at St Mirren when some of the kids were coming out getting their picture taken after the workshops, and it was clear that they did have fun, that they really enjoyed it. And it did make me laugh because the idea of these sort of information, we had public information films when it was my age, and these were designed to terrify you. I'm sure people my age will remember. It was like things like people climbing up pylons, falling off, people falling through disused houses, and you know, I don't think it really got the message across in that positive way. The films were absolutely terrifying. So I just thought I'd take a wee walk down memory lane for people who are over 50 and remember those public information.
I remember them. I remember Dave. He swam like a fish, remember? Not you, Dave. Or was it Mike? Oh, I got it wrong.
Dave was the one that was rejected.
Dave was rejected. Mike swam like a fish. That'll be completely over the heads of quite a few of you in here. Okay, Councillor Ian McMillan.
This has been a fantastic initiative, and I certainly remember the Labour group in the late 90s when this was first introduced, and it's went on to become a kind of mainstay, a part of the programme of education for kids here in Renfrewshire. My son missed it, he was too old, but I remember my daughter going to it, and now I've had 1, 2, 3 grandkids go to it as well. So I know they've all thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's put over in a really good way. As Jacqueline Cameron has mentioned, there's no design to frighten people, just to make them aware. And I think this is a very difficult time to be young. An awful lot more issues. There's still the same issues. Councillor Innes alluded to them earlier on, but there are some more issues, like particularly through the social media and internet and stuff like that. So it's a really, really difficult time to be young. And of course, the last few years of pandemic's not been kind to anybody, but it's been particularly hard hitting for our kids. So I commend the programme, and I hope it goes on for a long time. Hopefully, I knew the event was on because my granddaughter was there, but I would hope sometime in the future I get an invite to go along, just to kind of remind myself how good it is. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And Councillor James MacLaren.
Thank you, Provost. It's good to hear the Safe Kids is successful. And I'm just wondering, is it possible that something like this could be rolled out further across the council? I know that Langbank used to get street what's it called? Not street stuff. Yeah, something like this. Is it very similar, I should think?
No, it's completely different, and all of the children are involved right across Renfrewshire. This is a completely different thing, James.
Yeah,
I'll get one of the officers to get you some information on it, and you can have a wee read of it.
Thank you.
I was very lucky to go. I actually went on the day that Bruce and Robert were there at St Mirren football ground, and I got to judge the posters that the children made at the end. And that was really fun. But one thing was clear, was that whether or not they learned what the dangers were out there at that event, or if they already knew, I'm not really sure, but it was evident that they did know what the dangers were by the time they had finished that course. So that was what I was really heartened by. If they didn't know already, they definitely knew it when they left there. But yeah, thanks everyone for your comments, as it's an extremely good project, and we need to make sure it continues, make sure it's funded properly. Can I just, before we go, I know that's the final item, you're all desperate to run out of here, like that scene in Greece, you know, when they're all stopping for the summer. I've just got a couple of wee things that I want to say. You know that I'm having a wee charity event called I'm a Councillor, Get Me Out of Here. I'm a councillor, get me out of here. So I want as many of you to sign up as you possibly can. It's just a wee fun way of supporting a local charity and getting you all together to have some good quality time with each other instead of fighting. No, you won't get to know what the food is. Please sign up for it. It will be good fun. Now, I didn't want to talk about this at the beginning of the meeting. I didn't think it was appropriate given what we were just about to talk about in the agenda, but we did lose one of our very lovely councillors who was a councillor here for a long number of years, Councillor Jackie Green. And I know that we've all sent our own condolences and some of us went along to the funeral, but I just felt as if I couldn't leave today without mentioning Jackie and his invaluable contribution to this council and his friendship to all of us, no matter what party we belonged to. He gave me tons of support. He became, I consider, a very good friend, and we still kept in touch when he left the council from time to time. So I just want to say that, you know, our condolences have been sent to Alice and his family, and welcome any comments anyone wants to make about Jackie. Ian.
Yeah, I was just actually saying to Alison there, I wonder why you never mentioned it, but now I totally understand it, and I think that's probably the right thing to do. It was really, really sad to hear about the passing of Jackie. I had spoke to Jackie just a few weeks before he passed away, and I could tell he wasn't himself, and he was ill, and I knew that. I didn't realise probably it was quite as bad. Jackie was a great friend to me. When I came in the council in 1995, he was there to help us right from the very beginning. And when I was leader of the opposition 100 years ago, Jackie was my deputy at that time, and we shared a very small office, like me and Alison. But the office me and Jackie shared really was like Harry Potter's cupboard. It was ridiculously small, so we had no option but to get on really, really well. And I described Jackie as a really, really nice person, and he was a really nice person. He was very popular with other councillors from all parties, as well as staff. But he was the nicest person I have ever met in politics. I've met a lot of nice people out of politics, but he was the nicest person I have ever met in politics. A really genuine, warm, funny, family-loving guy. And you could talk to him about all sorts. And I will miss Jackie. I really, really will. And I hope to be going to see Alice, his wife, pretty soon to speak to her, because I'm sure she'll know her. Be quite happy to share memories of Jackie. So my condolences go to his family. Thank you.
It'd be nice if you could take these comments along to Ian. Yeah, he was a big gentleman, big gentle giant. Ian, did you say you wanted to say something?
Pushing on buttons there, convener. So yeah, I think I remember Jackie was a convener of planning. That's a sort of theme with me. I've been loitering around planning too long, I think. He was always a gentleman this year. He marked a sort of standard of convenership. And after every meeting, we'd have a wee chat in the members' lounge and all the rest of it. And he was always sucking a sweetie. I seem to remember all the time, because he always seemed to have sucking a sweetie. But he was a gentleman in that respect. And politics aside, he didn't carry the politics out the room, in a sense. He engaged with elected members, particularly ones at the planning board, and he always had time for good questions and daft questions in equal abundance. As I say, I always remember Jackie, and I always looked up to him in a sense, because if I remember, I can't remember exactly when Jackie came into council. I think it was there before I joined the council. But he's one of those ones where, as a new councillor, whatever, you tend to look for, you know, sort of guidance, no guidance in a sense, but sort of the way things maybe should be done within the council and that. And the last time I spoke to Jackie is quite a while ago, but as I say, you always remember Jackie. And as I say, when you've spent quite a long time in local government and you've seen people come and go in that respect, certain ones always stand out for you. And I would say Jackie's definitely in that mind of mine. When I heard he passed away, I was genuinely sad about it. As I say, he was a real gentleman, and he always had time to talk about anything you want to talk about. So I say I'm happy to share my condolences with Jackie's family. it's always sad to hear a colleague passing away. As I say, I have very good memories of Jackie. I just wanted to say that today at the meeting. Props.
Thank you. Thank you, Ian. Councillor Airlie Nicholson.
Thank you, Provost. In a previous iteration as a councillor, Jackie was one of the position at that period of time. The council was quite adversarial, if I'm being honest. It was a difficult environment to be in. But I have to say that Jackie was a wee shining light there. And the reason I'm saying that was he was courteous. He made sure that you were looked after and cared for. As part of that, I was a new councillor at that period of time. He was an absolute gentleman. I'm sorry to hear that he's passed, and actually think that he could have been a role model for many of the other people that were in that chambers at the time. But looked up to him, felt very cared for by him during that process. So I just wanted that noted.
Thank you. I think you're right. I think it just shows you how people feel about him when you're finding it difficult to put into words just how nice he was. That's pretty unusual in politics. Councillor McGurk.
Following on from Fiona, this actually effect on Jackie had the same effects on me. I remember one time in the old chamber, I did my very first speech, and it was a major issue about Dargavel Hospital. And I had done a lot of homework on it, and one of his colleagues announced that I read my speech very well and then dismissed it. And I felt absolutely gutted because I'd done a lot of work and I thought it was really important, the message I was trying to put over. But after the meeting, he came up to me and he says, you gave a lot of valid points there, and let me help you to achieve what you want to do. And he took me aside and he showed me what to do and how to progress it with the staff, with the officers. And I was forever grateful for that. He always showed respect and even a wee bit of twinkle now and again, like Ian saying, he was always doing something, but he would have a giggle with you, you know, but he used to say, we don't take it too seriously. And I said, I can't help it, I'm so passionate about it. And I wish to give my condolences, and John too, my husband, also knew Jackie well. And I would like to pass my condolences to his family.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. Councillor John Head.
Thank you very much. Similar to the other speakers there, but I've got fond memories of Jackie because I was his deputy on planning, and he kept me on the straight and narrow. I can tell you that right now. Even when he says, go down and get me some paracetamols from the shop, he used to do that all the time. But one thing he done was he sent me on sort of journeys where he didn't want to go, but he says, you go to that because you'll learn a lot. You go to that and you'll learn a lot. You go to that and you learn, and it wasn't the good ones. It was the ones that weren't that good, but he'll sadly be missed.
Yeah, you will be. I mean, I remember it. My children ended up calling him Uncle Jackie. We were standing at the polling station at one election, and my daughter came up with a cup of tea for Jackie and nothing for me. No, thanks very much, you know. It's a favourite here. But yeah, well, thank you all for your comments. And yeah, he will be really missed by his family. So thank you very much for your attendance today, and thank you very much for your patience. I know wasn't an easy morning for anyone, but have a really nice time over the summer holidays, please. Come back nice and refreshed and ready to go, because I'm going to make you build that school yourselves physically. Well, that never went down very well. Thank you.